Hello, it's Minitron, and today we're going to be talking about the artist. And I'm going to teach you some tips and strategies to help against her. Now I need you to understand that this color is very strong and very oppressive in chase, so you need to use 100% of your brain while chasing from her. Also, she's very new and no one really knows for 100% how to play against her, but I'm gonna give you some advices which I believe will definitely help you to win chases or extend them as long as possible. So, well, let's start from the basic numbers of her power. The cross strike hit dimensions are 8 meters height and 1 meter wide. 8 meters is basically like length of the killer's shack. If the crow nearly misses you, artist sees you with a killer instinct for 3 seconds. The killer instinct is that little bubble, and it shows to the killer with delay, but it's still a couple of bits of information that you should know about. Also, if you're out of range of the crow striking, if it doesn't hit you, but it hits you over some obstacles or hits you from far away, the crows will swarm you and you can repel them. If you don't repel crows after being swarmed, artist sees the crow's auras and basically sees your aura. So you should be repelling them. And you should also know that the artist can hear the crow noises behind the walls, so you are not really stealthy until you repel them fully. Also, even if you start repelling crows immediately after being swarmed, artist sees crows' auras for 0.75 seconds. This can also be used, but we're gonna talk about it later. You should just remember that for now. Next thing is, without add-ons, repelling crows takes straight 8 seconds. It can take more with add-ons. And also, while setting crows, artist is getting slowed down from 4.6 meters per second to 3.7 meters per second. And you basically start running faster than them while they're setting up their power, because Survivor runs at 4.0 meters per second. After firing crows, artist has a variable cooldown from 5 to 14 seconds, depending on amount of the crows fired. The more crows they fire, the higher amount of seconds they should wait before they are all fully restored. Also, if she's not firing any crows in 10 seconds of setting up the last crow, all the crows will disappear and the artist will have a short cooldown of 2 seconds. Also, you should know that the cooldown after firing crows before basic attack is 1 second. Okay, now let's talk about the general strategy of looping against the artist. You should start repelling crows as soon as you get swarmed by them, because it does two things. It basically removes the wall hacks, which she gets on you while you get swarmed and don't repel. And also it helps you not get downed after she attacks you with another crow after her cooldown. So the second thing is, you should always look behind yourself. You should see, hear, or predict when, where, and how she's setting up crows. That is very, very important, because you cannot dodge the crows when you don't know where she's setting them up. You should look over windows, over corners, and understand how and where and what she's setting up. In which direction are the crows facing? Are they placed right? Are they placed wrong? And you just need to understand where she's doing it. You don't see them through walls, so you should pay attention, maybe to sound, maybe to your intuition, to understand where she's setting them up and to play around them, play around it in future. The third piece of advice is pre-dropping pallets, because it makes you harder to catch. Now, artists can very alright play around the dropped pallets by setting her crows on the loop over the pallet or near the pallet, and she is very alright with playing around drop pallets, but she cannot walk through them. and that's very good. You can go through the drop pallet and the killer cannot. So she needs to set up crows, and if she messes up with her crows attack, then you get some time to run away, to repel a swarm of crows, and etc, etc. So pre-dropping pallets makes you much harder to catch. Next piece of advice is blocking line of sight. You should block line of sight because it makes the artist guess more. In the low loops, when she can see you alright, she just sets up crows and waits and looks at you and loops the pallet normally until she sees that you run into the crow hidden dimensions. And then she just releases her crow and you get downed, and you cannot do anything about this if she can see over the loop. But if she doesn't see over the loop, if you're looping in the high walls, she needs to predict when exactly are you going to run through that, and if she needs to predict, then she can mess up, or you can mind game her, and that's much better. So I recommend to loop the artist in the high walls, if you have, of course, an option to do it. Next thing you should do is watch out for long distance crows, set them from afar or from previous loop. In the game of catching up, artists will surely try to get you with the crows from a distance, and you should be ready for that. The smart artists always set crows so they cover not only the current loop, but also the next loop to which she predicts you can run to, and you need to watch out for those crows she set up early, because they can mess with you later. Okay, next advice of the strategy: you should use the cooldown after firing crows to both repel and run away. And if you take a window or a vault pallet, you need to interrupt the repelling, and that's not good. If you can just loop some tile safely and just run away around her and wait for the repelling to end, that's pretty much very good. And but ideally you can make distance and run away at the same time without vaulting or dropping the pallets. And that would be ideal, because by the time her power comes off cooldown, you are already nearly done with repelling, and she has a very little time gap to hit you again before you repel them fully. Okay, and the last advice is the most simple and boring one, but very effective. If you don't see an option for counterplay, if she corners you in some place and just sets up a crow on the only pallet you had, you should just run away. Of course, run away works better if you're not cornered, for obvious reasons, but while she is setting up crows, again, she's getting slowed down, so you can use that time frame to run away. And if she fakes the crow, she's still getting slowed down for a bit, and you can notice it and run back to the loop and force her to set up that crow and run away again. So if you don't understand how to counterplay her on a particular loop, you think she dropped all of your options, you should just leave the loop and run away, probably dodging all of the crows from the long distance, as I told you earlier. Okay, let's go now to just the little tips which can help you chase against her actually a lot. So let's go to the first one. If the crow swarms or nearly misses you, you can use the wall hacks to trick her. Again, if she's swarming you with a crow, you're getting your aura is getting revealed for 0.75 seconds. If she nearly misses you, she gets the killer instinct for 3 seconds on you. And understanding that, you can change your direction behind the walls. Fake going one way, then when her wall hacks stop, you can start running the other way, throwing her off completely. You can make distance with that, you can dodge crows with that from afar, and that can really help. Next one. Next advice is if you know her power dimensions, again 8 meters and 1 meter on width, you can go around the hitting area and just get swarmed. It's always better to get swarmed than hit, if you have the option. So you should try to visualize in the loop how long does her power hit and play around that. Okay, next advice is really very good. If she is setting up crows over their pilot in some loop, you can bait the crow attack while looping the pilot. So come close to the pilot. Also, this works with the window, of course. You come close to the window of pallet, and while she is sending her birds, expecting you to run forward, you just stand there before the window of pallet, and when the birds fly away, you quickly vault that pallet into window. You have a very tight window for doing this, because your cooldown after setting up crows between attack is 1 second. But if you also have some distance on her, and the window or pallet is strong, this is a very valid way to counter her. Next advice is you can run into the crows to disarm them. Now that is basically not a best option, but it's still better to then hit, because she still needs to line up another crow through walls, and that could be difficult. Ultimately, it's better to get crowed than to get hit. That will not send her ability on cooldown, so she will try to hit you with crows to finish you off, but then you can just dodge it. Next thing is you can actually use flashlights, firecrackers, and etc. to disarm birds in a chase, or to help your teammate. You can both drop the bomb or point the flashlight at your teammate while he's repelling crows to immediately repel their crows, not immediately but in 1 second. And also you can use that on static crow to disarm it. Now it's really hard to do it in chase, because you rarely have a line of sight on a crow or 1 second while she's still chasing you into that crow. But for some loops, this can actually help, but mostly I think flashlights are more usable to help your teammates. You can also use lockers in a chase to get rid of the birds immediately, but that only works if you are safe, if you are, for example, inside of a shack with a dropped pallet, or just in some other place with a dropped pallet, and you don't fear for your life, and she tries to snipe you through walls. You just can use quickly locker. This also works outside the chase, but if you're safe, you can use it also inside of a chase, and it can just extend your life massively. Next piece of advice is you can crouch under the higher end of pallet to get swarmed instead of hit. This can actually save your life if the pallet is very safe. So basically for that, you need to approach the pallet from the higher side. If you try to hide right after dropping pallet, the crow will hit you. But if you have time to crouch underneath the higher end of pallet, you only get swarmed. And then after vaulting it and running around the loop, you can actually start repelling them, and maybe again you will have to dodge some of those cross-environment shots with the next crows, but it will still be better than going down immediately. But I would advise to bait the crows over hiding against the pallet, because it can be risky. Also, you can calculate when the birds are going to be removed automatically. So again, if she's setting up birds, and after 10 seconds of the last bird she set up, the old birds will disappear. You can actually calculate when that's going to happen. She will have a less cooldown, sure, but this opens up a pretty interesting window of possibilities to outplay her. The one more thing I can probably mention is you can use Death Hearts through a striking crow to avoid it if you're in a desperate situation. With all these pieces of advice, I hope that you will understand a bit better how to play against her. Of course, you should try all of this yourself to build up the confidence against this killer. And this killer is really aggressive in chase again, and you need to constantly think of what she can do and what she can do, of where she's setting up crows, which mistakes she's making, and how can you punish them for making those mistakes. So I hope that this video helps you to understand how to play against artists in loops, because I think that's actually possible, and you can have a little bit of fun even looping the artist. And if you like the video, you can always comment it and like or subscribe to my channel if you want to see more guides or gameplay videos on the Dead by Daylight. And that's really it. See you in the next one.